Welcome back. For this week's video, we're going to be staying on the topic of love after our discussion last week on loving the little things. And yes, that is a bit of a plug. If you didn't check that video out, I would highly recommend doing so after watching this one. But for this week, instead of talking about loving the little things, we're going to be talking about loving something that is just as, if not much more important for you to love, with that thing being yourself. Be more positive. Just love yourself. These phrases are common pieces of advice given by friends and family to individuals who are dealing with depression and self-hatred. And for the friends and family who are saying these things, they truly do mean well by them, as these are the solutions for overcoming depression and self-hatred. However, the thing that they don't always realize is that for the person who's in this state of depression, it's nearly impossible for them to see how they're going to get from where they are to this more positive state in which they're loving themselves. And these phrases could, in fact, even spiral the depressed individual even further into their depression. It all has to do with the sentiment with which this advice is given. For example, say a friend comes up and says, just start loving yourself. And this could make it seem as if these things are supposed to be easy for everyone, that it's supposed to be super simple for anyone to just start loving themselves. And honestly, for the depressed individual, it's the furthest thing from easy. It could be borderline impossible. And so basically then what this implies is that if it's supposed to be so easy for everyone, then that there's something fundamentally wrong with the depressed individual, which then of course could force the depressed individual to spiral even further, as they then believe that they're completely different from everyone else and completely isolated just because they can't love themselves. And so to avoid this miscommunication, it's important to not only take a look at where the end goal is, again, this state of positivity and self-love, but also specifically looking at how the individual can get closer to that goal. Now, I will start off by saying that this transition is meant to be a journey, and that the answer will not be to do one quick thing and then everything will be fixed. Instead, the journey to positivity and self-love is one that is lifelong. To anyone out there who's currently in this depressive state, I know this probably sounds extremely intimidating and overwhelming. However, it's actually meant to be quite the opposite. The silver lining here is that you have your entire life to work towards this goal, and that means that you can move at whatever pace you're comfortable with. The size of the steps you take does not matter. It only matters that you're taking steps. And the one final bit that I will say about this is that the closer you get to the goal, the easier taking steps will become. And so with this fact that it gets easier the more steps you take, this then, of course, means that the first steps tend to be the most difficult. And so I figured I would share with you today a key insight that I've learned moving through these initial stages, with that key insight being to focus on the physical. This may seem quite counterintuitive, as depression and self-hatred are created by a bad mental state, but a key thing to realize is that this negative mental state can actually cause someone to have their physical needs go unmet. With physical needs, I just mean simple things such as hunger, thirst, sleep, etc. And so by not having these physical needs met, this then in turn perpetuates the negative mental state. And so it ends up kind of being like a chicken and the egg situation as to which one sort of comes first. But the key takeaway here is that a good first baby step towards self-love is to love your body through proper nutrition, exercise, and sleep. And again, I know to anyone out there who's currently in this depressive state that can, again, sound overwhelming and intimidating. However, I just want to be clear that you don't have to do all of this at once. Again, like I said before, you can move at your own pace. And so, for example, you can just pick one of these things and really try to focus on adequately nourishing your body with that one thing. For example, you could just set the small goal of trying to finish all of the water in your water bottle each day. Or maybe, for example, you want to just try and eat one vegetable each day to try and get some key micronutrients into your body. And again, as I said before, the size of the step does not matter. Just the fact that you're taking steps is what's key. And the reason I believe that starting with the physical is key is because this is what's been working for me thus far. So for me, the winters can be particularly challenging due to what I'm assuming is seasonal affective disorder. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with this, What seasonal affective disorder is basically a state of depression that's associated with a particular season. And so for me, it's likely the winter due to both the lack of daylight as well as the colder weather. And so with this, I mentally tend to be very up and down. So one day I'll be okay, and the next day I'll have next to no energy or willpower. And so this lack of mental consistency going from down here one day to up here on the next can be a very taxing thing. And typically, when I get into these depressive states, my eating and sleeping habits also become much less consistent, which I believe, again, exacerbate the issue. This semester, however, I've really tried to reel this in, not only by getting adequate sleep each night, but also by doing a meal prep each week so that I don't have to think about what I'm going to eat. Also, in doing this, I can ensure that I'm consistently eating meals that have adequate micronutrients and macronutrients to properly nourish my body. In terms of the results, this is the 5th or 6th week that I've been doing this, and honestly, I felt much more mentally consistent this semester. Now, of course, I still have up and down days because that's just the way life is. Some days are going to not be so great, and others are going to be wonderful. But in terms of my reaction to those ups and downs, I'm much more just like this as opposed to like this, which can be a very, very encouraging thing to see, especially when you've been so used to this for years on end. So basically, just to sort of wrap this all up, the main takeaways in terms of starting to move from depression towards positivity are first to start small with whatever you can manage. And again, this is probably definitely going to be different things for different people, and that's okay. I mean, just worry about you and what you're able to handle, what you're able to manage. And in addition to this, my personal recommendation would be to start with the physical. And by starting with the physical, at the very least, you can ensure that your body physically is going to have what it needs to function properly. And so that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.